The Galactic Council had always feared humanity. They called them unpredictable, ambitious, and dangerous, yet they had never seen them fight at full strength. The humans had spread across the stars, built thriving colonies, and integrated into galactic society, but they never truly challenged the great empires. They played by the rules, followed the Council's laws, and remained within their designated territories. It was almost disappointing. Many believed that humanity's reputation as a terrifying force was nothing more than myth. Others were convinced that Earth had simply accepted its place as a minor player in the cosmic order. But the truth was far worse than anyone had imagined. The breaking point came when the Galactic Council, seeking to curb humanity's growth, issued an ultimatum: submit to complete oversight or be erased. The Council saw no need for negotiation. They had crushed species before, reducing entire civilizations to ash when they resisted. Humanity, a young species, would be no different. When the ultimatum was delivered, the humans gave no response. Days passed, then weeks. The Council grew impatient and decided to act. They mobilized their fleets, millions of warships, the most advanced armadas ever assembled, each one fully prepared to obliterate Earth's colonies. The first fleets departed for human space, expecting a quick and decisive victory. But something was wrong. The fleets never arrived at their destinations. They simply vanished. No distress signals. No wreckage. Just silence, a T first. The Council assumed it was a navigational error or a minor rebellion. They sent more ships, this time escorting them with their most elite forces. Yet the result was the same. One by one, their fleets disappeared into the void, swallowed by an unseen force. Panic spread among the ruling species. Whispers of an unknown weapon or an advanced human technology rippled through the Council chambers. But that wasn't the most terrifying part. The real fear came from the silence. Humanity still had not responded. No threats, no warnings, nothing. They were simply watching, waiting. A single transmission broadcast across every communication channel in the galaxy. The message was short, spoken in an eerily calm human voice. We have never fought at full strength. Now, you will see why. The moment the transmission ended, human fleets emerged from the void ships, unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. They weren't just massive, they were monstrous. The Council's warships, which had once been considered the pinnacle of technological advancement, now looked primitive in comparison. The human ships moved with impossible speed, their hulls seemingly impervious to enemy fire. The first battle lasted less than an hour. Entire Council fleets were reduced to debris, their greatest admirals unable to comprehend how they were being outmaneuvered so effortlessly. What they had failed to understand was that humanity had never been weak. They had been holding back. For centuries, humans had studied the other species, learning from their wars, understanding their strategies, and improving beyond what was thought possible. They had built weapons they never used, ships they never deployed, and tactics they never revealed. The galaxy had assumed that humanity was just another species struggling to survive. They had no idea that Earth had been preparing for this moment all along. One by one, the Council's strongholds fell. Their war factories were destroyed before they could even activate their defenses. Their hidden research facilities, where they had designed their most devastating weapons, were wiped out before they could finish a single prototype. Humanity was everywhere, striking with terrifying precision. It wasn't war. It was execution. The Council tried to negotiate, but their pleas went unanswered. For every desperate attempt at diplomacy, another one of their fleets was erased. The message was clear: humanity wasn't interested in talking anymore. The most powerful empires in the galaxy, those who had once ruled without fear, now faced something they could not control. Humanity had stopped pretending to be weak. The realization sent waves of terror through the surviving Council members. For the first time in history, the balance of power had shifted beyond their grasp. And then, just as suddenly as the war had begun, it ended. The human fleets surrounded the Council's homeworld, their weapons primed and ready. But they did not fire. Instead, another transmission was sent. One final message. It contained only a single question: do you still wish to rule us? The council leaders, broken and trembling, understood the meaning behind those words. There would be no occupation, no forced surrender. Humanity had no interest in ruling the galaxy. They didn't need to. Their display of power had already rewritten the laws of the universe. From that day forward, no species dared to challenge humanity again. They weren't conquerors, but they didn't need to be. The mere possibility of humanity unleashing its full strength was enough to ensure that the galaxy would never threaten them again. And so, the universe held its breath, knowing that the day humanity stopped holding back was the day everything changed. For centuries, humanity had lived under the rule of the Galactic Council, bound by laws that restricted their expansion, limited their technology, and ensured they never became a true power. The ruling empires of the galaxy claimed these rules were for balance, but everyone knew the truth: humanity was being shackled, held back because the Council feared what would happen if they ever rose unchecked. Earth and its colonies were allowed to exist, but never to thrive. Every breakthrough in human science was either confiscated or suppressed. Every attempt to expand beyond their assigned sectors was met with immediate military force. The Council called it maintaining order. Humanity called it oppression. And for the longest time, they played along, obeying the rules, keeping their true strength hidden. But that was before the massacre. That was before the day everything changed. It began on a remote colony, one of humanity's largest and most prosperous. The Council's enforcers, the so-called peacekeepers, arrived without warning, claiming the colony had violated expansion laws. The humans tried to negotiate, offering proof that they had stayed within the limits. But the Council did not come for talks. They came to make an example. Without mercy, they unleashed orbital bombardments, reducing entire cities to flames. Millions of men, women, and children perished before a single distress call could even reach Earth. And when it did, the leaders of humanity finally understood there would be no peace, no future under the Council's rule. The time for patience was over. The time for war had come. The Council expected anger. They expected protests, maybe even small rebellions. What they did not expect was silence. No threats. No declarations. Just eerie, absolute quiet from humanity. For weeks, nothing happened. No retaliation. No mobilization. It was almost as if humanity had simply accepted its fate. Some council members even laughed, mocking the humans for their weakness. But then, the disappearances began. The first was a small fleet of council warships patrolling near human space. They sent a routine check-in, reporting no issues. Hours later, every ship in that fleet was gone. No wreckage. No distress signals. Just empty space where they once existed. A few days later, it happened again. This time, an entire battle group vanished. Panic spread through the council ranks. They deployed more fleets, only for them to suffer the same fate. The galaxy's greatest military powers suddenly found themselves powerless. It was then that humanity finally spoke. A single transmission, broadcast across every channel. No more. And then, the war truly began. From the depths of space, human warships emerged, larger and more advanced than anything the Council had believed possible. They did not fight fair. They did not fight with mercy. They struck fast, without warning, obliterating entire Council fleets before they could even react. The so-called superior empires, the ones who had kept humanity caged for so long, realized too late that the humans had been preparing for this moment all along. For decades, they had hidden their true technology, keeping their real fleets in deep space black sites, beyond the reach of Council spies. Every ship lost, every piece of technology confiscated, had been nothing more than a carefully crafted illusion. The humans had let the Council believe they were weak. They had allowed themselves to be underestimated. And now, that illusion was shattered. World after world fell to humanity's counterattack. The Council tried to rally its forces, but every strategy they had relied on for centuries was useless. Their armies, their fleets, their greatest weapons, none of them were enough. The humans were faster, stronger, and far more ruthless than the Council had ever imagined. The once mighty galactic rulers found themselves on the defensive for the first time in history, their empire crumbling before their eyes. As the war raged on, something even more terrifying happened. The other species, those who had lived under the Council's rule for centuries, began to rise. Inspired by humanity's defiance, rebellions ignited across the galaxy. Enslaved races overthrew their masters. Oppressed worlds took up arms. What had begun as a war between the Council and humanity had become something far greater. It was the collapse of an empire, and humanity was at the heart of it. Desperate, the Council made one last attempt to negotiate. They sent envoys to Earth, pleading for peace, offering to lift restrictions to share power. But humanity did not answer. Instead, their fleets arrived at the Council's homeworld, surrounding it with thousands of warships. For the first time, the rulers of the galaxy looked into the abyss, and the abyss looked back. And then came the final transmission. No threats, no demands, just a simple statement: you do not rule us anymore. The war ended not with a treaty, but with silence. The Council surrendered, not because they wanted to, but because they had no choice. They had built their empire on fear, on control, but now the ones they had feared the most had shattered their chains. Humanity did not take the throne. They did not claim the galaxy as their own. They simply stepped back, letting the other species decide their own fates. But the message had been delivered, loud and clear: humanity would never be chained again. From that day forward, the universe changed. No empire dared to rise unchecked. No species dared to challenge humanity. They weren't conquerors, but they didn't need to be. Their very existence was enough to ensure that the chains of the past would never return. And as the stars burned bright in the endless void, the galaxy remembered the day humanity stopped holding back, the day they became the chain breakers. The galactic elite had always viewed humanity as weak. The great empires tolerated their existence, allowing them to trade and colonize small parts of space, but never truly respecting them. Humans had no grand fleets, no overwhelming firepower, no terrifying technologies. They were seen as nothing more than an ambitious, but ultimately insignificant race, bound to remain in the shadows of greater civilizations. The Council, the ruling body of the galaxy, believed that humanity had accepted this reality. For centuries, the humans had followed the rules, paid their tributes, and avoided conflicts with stronger empires. It was proof, the Council thought. But the truth was something far more dangerous. Humanity had never accepted weakness. They had allowed the galaxy to believe in an illusion. The turning point came when the Xerac Dominion, one of the most powerful military empires, decided to make an example of Earth. Claiming that humanity had violated trade laws, they sent a massive invasion fleet toward the Sol system. Billions of soldiers, warships the size of cities, and weapons capable of cracking planets, all were deployed to remind humanity that they were nothing more than subjects of the greater galactic order. The Council did not stop them. If anything, they encouraged it. Humanity had to learn its limits. And so, the Xerac fleet arrived at Earth, expecting a quick and easy victory. What they found instead was something that defied all logic. As the fleet approached Earth, their sensors detected no defenses. No planetary shields, no orbital battle stations, not even a standing fleet to protect their homeworld. The entire system was silent, open, vulnerable. The Xerac commanders hesitated. It was too easy. Too perfect. But arrogance clouded their judgment. They gave the order to advance, sending landing parties to major cities, preparing to claim Earth for themselves. And then, everything fell apart. Within seconds, the invaders realized something was terribly wrong. The humans they encountered did not panic. They did not scream or beg for mercy. Instead, they smiled. And then, the sky changed. Entire fleets that should not have existed appeared from the void. Warships of impossible size and power emerged from nowhere, their hulls shimmering with an energy the galaxy had never seen before. The landing forces tried to retreat, but their ships were gone, simply erased from existence, as if they had never been there. The Xerac commanders, watching from orbit, frantically ordered their forces to attack, but their weapons refused to fire. Their systems no longer responded. Communications were filled with static. And then, the illusion shattered completely. The great empires, once so certain of their superiority, finally turned to Earth. Not as rulers, but as desperate survivors searching for answers. They demanded to know what was happening. What was humanity hiding? And why had they claimed to be protecting the galaxy? The response was simple: because we were the only ones who saw the truth. For centuries, humanity had known of the real threat. A force that did not conquer, did not negotiate, did not even acknowledge the existence of other species. It did not seize civilizations. It did not wage war. It simply erased. An ancient enemy, older than the stars themselves, moving silently through the void, consuming everything in its path. The Council had dismissed the warnings, calling them human superstition. But humanity had never stopped preparing. Now, the truth was unavoidable. The darkness had come, and only humanity stood against it. Then, for the first time, the galaxy saw what humanity truly was. The silent observers, the passive traders, the unambitious race, none of it had been real. The humans had been watching, yes, but not out of fear. They had been watching because they were the last line of defense. And now, they were ready. From hidden strongholds buried deep within dead systems, the real human fleets emerged. Massive warships, cloaked in energy signatures unknown to the galaxy, moving with the precision of a force that had spent centuries preparing for this moment. Weapons that defied logic, technology beyond what any species had believed possible. Humanity had not been staying quiet because they were weak. They had been staying quiet because they knew the galaxy was not ready to understand what was truly out there. And then, the counterattack began. Human fleets moved with a purpose no one could comprehend. They struck at empty space, fired at nothing, and yet every attack sent shockwaves through the void. The darkness, the enemy that had remained unseen for so long, began to react. It recoiled. It screamed. For the first time in history, something was fighting back against it. The humans had studied the enemy, learned its patterns, developed weapons that could finally wound it. The rest of the galaxy could do nothing but watch in stunned silence. The battle was unlike anything ever recorded. Human ships didn't just fire weapons, they rewrote reality itself. Entire sections of space that had been consumed were restored, systems that had been lost reappeared as if they had never been touched. It was not war. It was a rescue mission, and only humanity had the knowledge, the power, and the will to fight it. In the end, humanity did not ask for gratitude. They did not demand power or recognition. They simply sent one final message. We will continue to stand guard, but now you know the truth. The universe is not as safe as you believed, and we are not as weak as you thought. Then, just as they had always done, humanity fell silent once more. Their fleets disappeared, their weapons vanished from sight. But the galaxy would never see them the same way again, because now every empire knew the truth. Humanity had never been the ones in need of protection. They had been the ones protecting everyone else. And from that day forward, no species would ever underestimate the silent guardians again. For centuries, humanity had been contained. The great empires of the galaxy had seen their potential early on and acted swiftly, not through war, but through control. The Council of Elders, the ruling force of the known universe, had set strict laws that humanity was forced to obey. No large fleets. No advanced weapons research. No expansion beyond designated colonies. Every attempt to rise beyond their assigned role was met with swift political pressure, economic sanctions, and, when necessary, brutal enforcement. The galaxy told itself that this was for balance, that humanity was too reckless, too unpredictable to be given true freedom. The truth, however, was far simpler fear. The empires had seen what humans were capable of. Not just their intelligence, not just their adaptability, but something far deeper. A fire that refused to die, no matter how much pressure was placed upon it. And so, they built a cage around humanity. A cage of rules, of surveillance, of carefully orchestrated limits. And for a time, it worked. Humanity followed the restrictions, never openly rebelling, never showing signs of aggression. They built their small fleets for defense, traded within their allowed borders, and complied with every law placed upon them. The Council took this as proof that the cage had tamed them, that humanity had accepted its place. But they had made one mistake believing that a caged beast was the same as a broken one, because humanity had not submitted. They had waited, they had learned, and they had prepared. Then came the day the cage broke. It started with the collapse of the Vrakian Empire, a once mighty force that had ruled dozens of systems. Their homeworld fell in a single night, their fleets wiped from existence by an unknown force. The Council scrambled to understand what had happened. Was it a rebellion? A new enemy? They had no answers. And then, it happened again. Another empire fell. Then, another. No demands, no declarations of war, only silence and the undeniable truth that something was unraveling the power structure of the galaxy. The Council convened in desperation, searching for an answer. And then, a single transmission arrived. Not from an enemy, not from an unknown species, but from Earth. A simple message carrying only 6 words: the cage has opened. We are free. Panic set in. This was impossible. Humanity had no fleets large enough to wage war, no armies capable of such devastation. They had been monitored, controlled, caged. And yet, before their very eyes, the galaxy was shifting. Systems long thought secure were now under human control. Human warships, larger and more advanced than anything recorded, appeared from seemingly nowhere. The Council demanded answers. How? When? Where had these fleets been built? The truth hit them like a hammer. Earth had never been defenseless. The entire invasion was walking into a carefully crafted lie. Humanity's weakness, their compliance, their inferiority, it had all been an act. Every war they had lost, every treaty they had signed, every rule they had followed, all of it had been a deception. The humans had never been powerless. They had simply been waiting, learning, preparing. The fleet above Earth was already dead. They just hadn't realized it yet. The counterattack began without a single shot fired. The human ships moved with unnatural speed, slipping through space like ghosts. The Zirak fleet, the largest in their empire's history, was dismantled in minutes. Not destroyed, erased. As if they had never existed. Entire warships vanished mid-flight. Entire battalions were wiped from existence with no trace. The Zirak commanders, once so certain of their superiority, now faced the terrifying realization that they were not fighting an enemy. They were fighting something they did not understand. The survivors tried to flee, but there was nowhere to run. One by one, the remaining warships fell silent. The last transmission from the Zirak fleet was not a distress call. It was a single, whispered phrase, repeated over and over again by every remaining soldier. We were wrong. The Council, watching from afar, was paralyzed with fear. Humanity had not only defeated one of the most powerful empires in the galaxy, it had done so effortlessly. The illusion had shattered, and the truth was now undeniable. The galaxy had never allowed humanity to exist. Humanity had allowed the galaxy to believe in its own strength. And now, the game was over. The Council sent envoys to Earth, desperate for answers. What did humanity want? Would they seek vengeance? Would they claim the galaxy for themselves? But when the human representatives arrived, they did not make demands. They did not threaten. They simply asked one question: do you still think we are weak? The message was clear. Humanity did not want to rule. They did not need to. Their existence alone had changed everything. The great empires, once so certain of their dominance, now lived in fear not of human conquest, but of what might happen if humanity ever decided to stop pretending. And so, the galaxy held its breath, forever haunted by the knowledge that the greatest illusion in history had been humanity's weakness. The final illusion had been broken, and there was no going back. For as long as the galaxy had known of them, humanity had been quiet. They had never expanded recklessly, never sought to claim more than what they were given, and never challenged the great empires that ruled the stars. While other species waged wars for territory, crushed weaker civilizations, and enforced their dominance, humanity simply watched. They built their colonies, traded with the council, and followed the laws set by those who saw themselves as superior. It was almost disappointing. Many believed that humans lacked the ambition to become a true galactic power. Others whispered that they were simply too weak to resist the natural order of the universe. But the truth was, something no one had considered: humanity was not weak. They were waiting, watching, preparing for a moment only they knew was coming. The moment arrived in silence. No declarations of war, no fleets appearing on long-range sensors, just the sudden and absolute disappearance of an entire star system. One moment, it was there, home to billions of people and hundreds of thriving worlds. The next, it was gone. No wreckage. No distress calls. Just empty space where a civilization had once existed. Panic spread through the council. Had it been a new weapon? A natural disaster? Or something far worse? The council demanded answers, but none came. Until, finally, humanity spoke. A single transmission was sent to every ruling species in the galaxy. It contained no threats, no explanations, only a warning. We have protected you for long enough. The enemy is here. No one understood what it meant. Protected from what? What enemy? The council dismissed it as a human attempt at deception, but something didn't feel right. And then, more systems vanished. Entire fleets sent to investigate simply ceased to exist. The galaxy had faced wars before empires had risen and fallen. Species had been wiped out, but this was different. There was no enemy to fight, no battle to be won. It was as if something was consuming reality itself. And through it all, humanity remained silent. The answer shattered them. Humanity had never been weak. They had never stopped advancing. While the council watched the surface, humanity had been digging deeper. Hidden beneath lifeless moons, buried within gas giants, concealed in the darkest corners of space, they had constructed their true strength in secret. The laws imposed upon them had never been barriers, only challenges to overcome. Every restriction had been turned into an opportunity, every limitation studied until it became meaningless. And now, the time for pretending was over. The first human fleets moved like shadows, striking with precision that no empire could match. They did not destroy needlessly. They did not conquer. They simply removed those who had held the galaxy in chains for too long. Those who had enslaved weaker species, those who had hoarded power, those who had built the walls that kept others beneath them one by one, they fell. The council, once the supreme rulers of the known universe, found themselves on the defensive. Their fleets, once unmatched, crumbled before weapons they could not comprehend. The greatest minds of the galaxy struggled to understand how humanity had reached this level of power in secrecy. But the answer was terrifyingly simple. Humans thrived in cages. They did not break them, they outgrew them. The war lasted only weeks. By the end of it, the council was no more. The empires that had once ruled the galaxy stood broken, their might shattered not by a conqueror, but by a force that had been underestimated for far too long. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the war was over. The galaxy braced for the worst. Would humanity take control? Would they impose their own rule? Would they seek revenge for the centuries spent under the council's control? But humanity did none of these things. They did not claim the throne. They did not demand obedience. They simply stood at the center of the chaos they had unleashed and spoke a single truth: we did not fight for power. We fought for freedom. And now the galaxy is free. And with that, the humans withdrew. They did not occupy. They did not enforce. They simply let go of the chains that had bound them, and, in doing so, shattered the chains that had bound countless others. They had never wanted to rule. They had never sought domination. All they had ever wanted was the chance to stand as equals. And now, nothing could stop them from doing so. The galaxy would never be the same again. The old empires had fallen. A new age had begun, and at its heart stood humanity not as conquerors, not as rulers, but as the ones who had proven once and for all that no cage could hold them forever.